Full and uncut versions available on Patreon. Check in the description below.
Greetings once again, pirates on the high seas. Duuz-Diz-Din back again with more One Piece, as this time we are entering into volume 112. Not showing off the cover because I'm just trying to get into the chapters, but if you know what it is, it's a great volume cover with Luffy in the center, surrounded by the new giant warrior pirates, including Saul with Robin. It's absolutely charming, and it's a great time altogether. But what happened previously in the last read-through we did? Well, the Straw Hats found themselves in a diorama made up of Lego bricks and various different elements, as well as being patrolled by the pets of this sun god who rules over the land, only for it to turn out to be Road of the giant warrior pirates, new giant warrior pirates, all in a bid to capture the Straw Hats, because he didn't really see eye to eye with Harley about serving under them. But the Straw Hats managed to rough him up a little bit and escape, with them now in the lower realm of the land of Elbaf, with everybody else aboard the Great Eric, with Dory and Brogy deciding to just head off to Elbaf because, well, knowing Luffy and the others, they've already made it there, and yes, of course, that's exactly what happened. You gotta love it when characters become genre savvy. But as everyone is heading up to the upper realm across a rope bridge, which is pretty dang massive, even by giant standards, Luffy decides to jump down into the lower realm even further, because he overhears cries, or roars as he describes it, from within the forest of wolves. And who should he find? Oh, the Prince of Elbaf, none other than Loki, chained to the giant tree that makes up their land. Loki was apparently in prison for killing his father to steal his devil fruit. He is also the brother of Harley, who now wishes to become king of the land. After a bit of a tense back and forth between the imprisoned Loki and Luffy, with Loki trying to get Luffy to release him, Luffy seemingly makes a bit of a deal with Loki, as when he heads back to the others who have united with Road and Goldberg, who have punished Gerd and Goldberg. Road was punished for his transgression, but when Luffy meets up with Road and Goldberg, keep saying Road, Gerd and Goldberg, he doesn't really want to be forthcoming about why he was in the forest. So they meet up with the others. They head off to the sun world of Elbaf, and using special devices known as painters, which allow them to ride on rainbows, the other Straw Hats aboard the Great Eric end up right at the same town as everyone else, who are with the new giant warrior pirates. But the celebration that is supposed to go underway, as many of the giants accredit the defeat of Big Mom to Luffy, has to wait, as it's time for Robin to meet Saul. What a tearful reunion it is. 22 years in the making. Which, considering how long the manga has been going on, shoot, it's just about even in real time, which is really saying something. Shoot, I jumped into the story proper. I caught up with One Piece proper. Well, at least started in the Japanese version, picking up around the time of Enies Lobby. Like, I was kind of spoiled by Frankie joining by a cover page that Oda had put out there, which was like Straw Hats versus CP's 9. And he put Frankie with the Straw Hats, but that was even before Frankie was fully declared to be a Straw Hat. So if you remember that cover spread, I remember that too, and being like, oh, Frankie's supposed to be a Straw Hat, and then wondering, wait, but he hasn't officially joined yet. So I was so confused at the time, but it was about around the time Luffy was just rushing through all those Marines, smacking them all down and stuff like that. So about around the time of Robin's flashback is when I picked up on the series. So it's been a long time. But what happens next in the land of Elbaf, where it's said that you shouldn't stay too long? Well, join me as I find out, won't you? Alright, we are jumping in. What a cover spread, which, looking at the cover spread, it kind of made me remember that by this point, I think Frankie Frankie had a new voice actor in the anime because his initial voice actor, who was also the voice actor for originally for Django and then Bon Clay, and Oda liked the voice actor so much, he designed Frankie for this person Yao to voice act for. And I feel like this is probably a tribute going up to him. And it's going to be so weird because even in the anime, I haven't gotten to that point with the new voice actor. And it's going to be weird because I tie that voice so much to Frankie. And I don't know, I hope he at least kind of maybe sounds like the English voice actor. I don't like the English voice actor for Frankie. He does a great job, even though he's a lot deeper and all that. But Yao has such a distinctive voice. I don't know. And I think it's the voice actor for Todo in Jujutsu Kaisen. And his voice is like, oh man, his voice is so much deeper. I don't know. But this is a great cover spread. And Robin with her, callback hairstyle, long, but with the fringe bangs and all that, which is kind of nice. Now, it suits Robin a little bit more. See, now all Robin needs is her cowboy hat, and we'll really have the good throwback. But everybody in military outfits with the squirt guns, which makes me think of the one opening. I think it was for the one for the 15th anniversary, or maybe something else, where they all had squirt guns and stuff like that. All right, enough preamble. Let's get into the chapter. We are eternal. All right. It's One Piece chapter 1134, The Owl Library. Okay. Is that where Professor Saul does a lot of his teaching out of or whatever? Luffy striking the same pose as Jinbei back when Jinbei showed up on Wano. Luffy says, "Old man Saul, a long time ago you did a great favor to one of our youngins. Thank you kindly. Begging your pardon." One of the Straw Hats says, where and how did you learn that? Right? I feel like it's probably Nami. And then Luffy says, well met, good sir. He's trying to do like with Ace when Ace went over to thank Shanks for looking out for Luffy all that time ago. You always got to thank the benefactor of one of your close compatriots and friends. Robin says, this is Luffy. And Saul just laughs, damn it, yeah, I know about Luffy. He's famous. So you found him after all, huh, Robin? He says with a great smile. Luffy seems to question this, but Robin says, I did, just as you said. I found them, Saul. I found the true friends who will stand up to protect me. And just as when they saw the touching reunion, Usopp, Chopper, Nami, Sanji, and Frankie all turn away crying, thinking we'll protect you for life. Even though, the stoic ones, Jinbei and Zoro, just stand there, just like, yes, probably with an affirming look in their eyes, while Luffy just said, I mean, of course. Saul then says, listen, all you friends of Robin, thank you for coming all this way to Elbath. Sorry about the surprise and all. I rehearsed it over and over with my assistant, Angie. So she was in on it too? Really? What an old codger. Old men who have nothing better to do with their time. Years ago I was in the Navy, so I know what a big deal the four emperors are. Thank you so much for keeping Robin safe. All I can say is keep it up. Right? Luffy just laughs. You bet we will. Lilith then comes flying over with her Dom shoes, which I thought only worked on the island. Then again, standard hover technology. Shoot. If that's what they're capable of, I feel like all the Straw Hats should be using them more commonly. But Lilith comes flying over to Saul saying, hey Saul, it's me. Saul questions, you? Who's you? How are you flying? And Lilith says, I'm Vegapunk. Saul says, huh? And I'm guessing one explanation later. Okay, so Jinbei is hoisting something from Vegapunk off of, I guess, Gerd's little ship, saying, is this what you wanted? Lil says, yes, perfect. Gerd says, oh, allow me. Jinbei then says, Vegapunk requested that we bring this all the way from Egghead. What's inside? Lil says, this? Me. Luffy freaks out saying, a Vegapunk cloud? Another one? Lilith says, a perfect recreation, not like we satellite. This was the me who came here 20 years ago. Oh, so somehow we even get the Vegapunk from the distant past, too. Even Saul's questioning this. But Robin questions, don't you think the government would have been suspicious if the Stella had left his lab for months at a time? Or is it Lilith saying this? Or is it Vegapunk's body? Lilith says, anyway, I snuck him out in a vat of biofluid, but I don't have the facility to safely extract him. That's why I intend to settle down here and build a new laboratory. Is that okay? Then again, you have so many of the books, so why not? And it's as safe a place as any. Freaking Elbath. So a clone of Vegapunk, more like himself than the satellite, and more closer to the original Vegapunk. Shoot. So I guess in a way he never ends up dying to begin with. Bonnie comes over saying, Lilith, does that mean you'll be able to make my daddy all better? And Lilith says, of course, Bonnie, with a thumbs up. Really? Okay, sure. Vegapunk, it's Vegapunk, so why not? Bonnie says, yay! Saul then says, if you're really Vegapunk, then I'm delighted to see you again after 20 long years. But I can't wrap my head around it. Why are you a woman? Said every old man seeing the world of today. Well, it says, oh, who cares? I can explain later. Exactly. Okay, I guess those are some kids. For a second, I thought it was the Straw Hats, but I think it's kids. Yeah. Some giant kids come poking their head off around a tree saying, Mr. Saul, are you done now? Can we go play? Saul says, oh yeah, sorry about that. Thanks for your help, kids. Angie then says, normally this spring is a playground for the children, so we had to ask them to stay quiet for Mr. Saul's little one-man act. The Straw Hats say, you did all of that and she saw right through it? Angie says, forgive the late introduction. I'm Mr. Saul's assistant, Angie. Sorry to talk down to you like this. We run the best library and school in Elbath here. The Otterbox says, our library librarian, Saul's assistant, Angie. Sorry to talk down to you like this. And you can't really help it, all things considered. Angie then says, I can show you around if you'd... But Luffy and Usopp say, oh, this place looks fun. This is where warriors of Elbath get their elite training. And they go running off. Angie says, they're already gone. And I think she explains, that's the Walrus School, where the children of Elbath learn. Saul founded it 20 years ago at the behest of the former king. Okay, so Loki and Haruden's dad. They say, whoa, that looks so neat. So it's basically a warrior training ground, huh? I don't know about all that. It doesn't really... this is a great design, though. Cool. I love how it's just built into the trees and stuff. That's cool. Makes me think of, the treehouse in Tarzan. And as Luffy go running across the beach, the shore of the lake, the children play in the water. Saul then waves, saying, so long, Angie and Gerd. Show them wherever they want to go. I'm going to give Robin a tour of the library. With the other Straw Hats, Nami says, let's go, Chopper. Chopper says, I'm more curious about the library. Are all the books huge too? Brooke says, I haven't been to school in ages. Sanji says, and I'll protect you, Nami. Well, Frankie says, I'm curious about this island's giant tree. Oh, Jinbei says, it's huge. Okay, I was wondering where Zoro was. Some giant kids are chasing Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp, saying, Pipsqueak humans catch him and take him prisoner. Luffy just laughs. It's a land of giants. While Zoro says, should I slash him? Zoro, you keep saying that, buddy. I need you to calm down. Usopp says, don't even think about it. Zoro says, yeah, I guess kids are meant to be brats. Yeah, more or less. Ooh, oh, hello there. Okay, I was wondering if it was the same kids who were playing in the water. But no, some other little girl giants come out saying, stop that, don't chase the humans around. And the boys immediately settle down saying, sorry. While the girls say, and don't say pipsqueaks. Luffy freaks out saying, they're such wimps. Zoro questions, are these brats really from the village of warriors? Well, one of the kids say, hey, you're not supposed to call us brats. Usopp then says, wait, this is weirding me out. Listen, you can call us pipsqueak humans, it's fine. And you guys are gonna go out to sea one day and fight ruffians, aren't you? The boys say, no, we're not. That's dangerous. Usopp's illusion is being broken. These kids are actually fairly well behaved. Then again, they're at a school. Like, of course, it makes actually a lot of sense. Oh, Ripley. See, I'm looking at the next page because I got a hottie there. Like, well, hello there. And the face tat, there's a lot. Usopp, well, I'll get to that page in a second. Usopp says, what? Aren't you guys the next generation of Elbath warriors? Well, the boy said, don't call us guys. Or I think it's the girls who say that. Usopp says, what? Someone says, it's not in anymore. Zoro looks around saying, whose voice was that? It was an adult. Usopp questions, what do you mean it's not in anymore? One of the boys say, you should probably move. While the girl says, you're going to get yelled at. As it turns out, they're standing atop the Oda box says, Walrus School biology teacher Ripley. Yeah, isn't she, who Colin was bringing that food to from his mom in the, diner or whatever? Was that his mom? I don't know. When the boy says, you're standing on top of Miss Ripley. Zoro and Usopp say, whoa. Oh, no, Zoro and Luffy say, whoa. As Usopp says, we're on top of a giant, sorry. Ripley, who's lounging on the ground, says, it's fine, you're not heavy. Is this shocking to you? When the warriors of Elbath were ransacking the world, that was 100 years ago. Insults, violence, pillaging, war, that's just not the world we live in anymore. Luffy says, what? As he's stumbling around in her cleavage. Actually, you know what? Who's bigger? Shirahoshi or Ripley? Because they seem about around the same size, honestly, looking at this. Because I'm having flash... Because I just watched through the Fishman Island remake stuff, which wasn't really that great, honestly. I mean, it was briefer, but it wasn't really that great in the long run. Better colors and textures and stuff like that, better shading, but that was about it. But I don't know, because now I have Shirahoshi on the brain, and remembering when Luffy ended up in her cleavage too, it's like, is Shirahoshi like this around the same size as them? Because it feels like she could be. Oh, we'll find out once we get some heights in one of the Vivre cards. On Ripley's little tattoo or whatever is going all the way down, like down her chest. No, we'll see how well what part of her chest that covers up in some other art. But all the way down her body, down her leg, down her thigh. Like, that's interesting. I wonder if it has any significance. We haven't really seen many giants with tattoos. Oh, so Ripley was just lounging on a tree. Gotcha. As Ripley picks up the Straw Hat, she says, welcome. I heard about you from Saul. You must be the Straw Hat crew. As Angie comes running up saying, oh, there they are. Ripley says, sorry, our breaths are so damn annoying. I think Angie says, hey, your tone of voice. Well, one of the kids say, Miss Ripley, that's mean. God, kind of reminds me of my wife when she does teaching. She tells it like it is to the kids, whatever and however. And Ripley just says, I teach by negative example. That's one way of looking at it. Ripley holds the Straw Hats aloft, saying, the great King Harold once said, don't fight other countries, trade with them. He got into many arguments with the village chiefs and their traditions. Usopp questions King Harold. Angie explains he was a great king who tried to reform this country and was killed by his own son before his dreams could be realized. Oh, Loki. But the country refused to give his son the throne, and so Elbath has no king now. Hey, why not Haruden? Or is it like, is Haruden like from a mistress or something like that? Ripley says, okay, history lesson over. Go and show them around the school, kids. The kids say, yes, Miss Ripley. Ripley says, go on now. Ripley then looks to Luffy saying, why aren't you in your white-haired form, Captain? I was looking forward to that. Luffy says, oh, that's my free form. Ripley kind of questions this and then says, there's a warrior who looks like that in Elbas mythology. Luffy says, oh yeah? Ripley says, it made my heart race. We're the last generation of warriors here. Okay, is Luffy finally gonna get a explanation on Nika? And it'd be as good a time as any in a school. Back over with Saul, he says, oh, so you've already heard most of the story. I basically I fled for my life. and managed to get here to Elbath. But I couldn't help but worry about the books those scholars gave their lives to protect. So I asked Harden's crew to take me back to O'Hara. When I found all those tiny books clinging to life, I wept. He opens the door saying, "Come in, Robin. Watch out for that book." As they enter into the library, I guess, the book Robin is holding suddenly grows immensely. Jesus. Okay. So I was wondering how that would work, because it's like you have all these tiny ass books. How did the giants read any of them? Is it a devil fruit power or something? I feel like he probably should have warned her a little bit more. She could have been crushed. Saul shows them into the library with a large owl at the top. I wonder if it's related to Ripley's owl. Saul says, "There, she. Ain't it something? All those books are now giant size. Every book you bring in here turns huge. This is the wondrous Owl Library. And here you'll find all the texts that O'Hara protected 22 years ago. We've searched all over the island to find every last one. You can check, they're all here." So every single book survived. Dang, that's impressive. I mean, they gave their lives to do it. So I say good on them for actually managing to save every single book. I can only assume that maybe it was maybe a contingency plan they always had. They knew that with the ink they use and the paper that the stuff was printed on, it would always be like, look, we're surrounded by, if anything should ever happen to a tree, throw it into the lake, bada bing, bada boom. People will think that the books are ruined because under most normal standards, a book surviving being thrown in a lake would be very rare. But depending on the material that you use, if it's very good material, and yeah, books could survive being... There are some very sturdy books out there, I'll tell you that much. Just, if you've been to high school in America, Robin looks around just in bewilderment, or in shock, I guess you could say. He thinks back to the words of Professor Clover saying, "This is the world's best library. You like books?" And... Saul just continues laughing up a storm. "There, she. I can't believe I finally get to show this to you." As Robin, with a smile on her face, wells up with tears. Oof. And Robin's been having a great run for a good long while now, just in terms of plot progression. Alright, now we cut back to the underworld. Okay, Loki says to someone on a transponder snail, I'm surprised there's one next to him, or so near him, but maybe it was brought by one of his servants or whatever. As Loki says, "Ah, yes, you're almost as bored as me." The person on the other line says, "Am I bothering you?" Loki says, "Nah, I could use a conversation partner, and I've got all the time in the world. Are you still traumatized by that experience you were telling me about?" We see that it's a snow transponder snail. Cold resistant speech recognition type. Oh, okay. Yeah, they normally can't survive the cold. Okay. Interesting. It's got fur and stuff coated on it. The person says, "I am. Even now, the memory makes me tremble uncontrollably." Loki tells them, "Hurts me to hear it too. I've never met you nor seen you, but through some twist of fate, we've long been friends." Who is it, I wonder? Given the transponder snail, maybe just because it's furry, I'm wondering, is it one of the elders who survived? You had Jarl and Yorl, but I don't know who it could be, though. I'm thinking it's one of those elders, the one who didn't die, because a situation that he remembers that kind of traumatized him, maybe when his friend was killed by Big Mom that time ago. Loki says, "If I were in your place, I'd have razed it to the ground and killed them all instead." The voice on the other line says, I wasn't hoping for that much." Loki yells, "And that's why you're so weak, Shaggy." Shaggy, listen, you don't want to let these fools get away. You put them down for good or they'll come back for vengeance. The person on the other line says, "Why, thank you." Loki says, "What?" The person says, "I've realized recently that those fearsome words of yours hide your kindness." Okay. So, Yeah, I was kind of getting that vibe too. Like, there's something more about Loki. I feel like maybe if he killed his father, maybe his father wasn't the kind of person he said he was, or it could even be that Loki maybe didn't actually kill his father. I could see this as like some kind of false imprisonment or something. But Loki angrily says, "Don't make me sick. How dare you suggest such a thing? I'll not have you sassing me like this. Me, Kai, never say that again." The person on the other line says, "Please don't shout." Loki says, "Shut up. Just you wait until I get these chains off, Shaggy." I think he's all bluster. I don't believe it. He feels like when Zoro was chained out in that yard. He talked big and he talked menacing, but this person's saying that your fearsome words hide your kindness. See, that feels like the little girl giving Zoro the rice balls and stuff like that. That's what it makes me think of. Oh, we cut to the western village of Elbath, where I guess the people in the town say, "Hey, the feast hasn't started yet. We're just drinking as we wait." That's a little too much. And as Brogy and the others party, there's a flash in the nearby castle as two figures appear in a very familiar looking pentagram. One, Shanks, and the other, a young girl with bandages on her face. So, is it Shanks? I know there was a theory that Shanks had some, like, twin brother or whatever, but Shanks just left. Why would he come appearing like this in a pentagram? See, for a second I thought maybe, oh, this explains how Shanks keeps getting around places so fast. But I don't know, because we've only ever seen people's bodies be teleported through these pentagrams. Not to mention, you just put these pentagrams wherever, or was this pentagram already here? And is this where the king was killed? And thankfully I don't have to wait to find out about this, but I'm about to find out if Shanks has a twin brother or not. Alright, up next is One Piece chapter 1135, Friends Cup. And we have the cover page where I guess Thomas training has paid off as she manages to just nail Hold'em right in the face. A little bit of payback for what happened previously. And I think Hold'em drops his sword and it ends up cutting the lion on his tummy. One Piece chapter 1135, Friends Cups. And the cover page is Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage Volume 21. I'm different now. Okay. Has she already become a bewitching Konoichi? Alright, we pick up in the Owl Library where Bonnie and Chopper are looking through a book. Bonnie says the letters are so huge. Chopper says, I can't even read them like this. While Saul addresses the owl up top saying, Bilbo's the one who lords over this library. He's been around here for centuries, I hear. Centuries, dang. All we know is that owl up there will make any book that enters his territory grow to enormous size. Okay. Must be some kind of devil fruit. Because I know that in the anime and the game, there were two different giants. I forget the first one, but Lily in the anime, who had an ability called the Mini Mini no Mi, where they could shrink themselves. But it would make sense if there was a devil fruit ability that allowed you to make things gigantic in size. It's Biblo, like Biblioteca, the Owl Library Chief Librarian. And he just hoops. Saul says, because Elbath ain't affiliated with the world government, we don't get news coups here. But you can read little newspapers the fishermen get while at sea. Lilith says, I expect it's a growth owl that's eating the grow fruit. It can cause any inorganic matter to grow. The perfect power for a land of giants. Isn't that the truth? Grow fruit. Interesting. Saul then says to Robin, so does it take you back? Robin says it does. Chopper approaches saying, I wonder if they have medical books. Actually, Chopper, talk with the friggin' owl. I'm just realizing, Chopper, talk with the friggin' owl. Who knows how many things this owl has seen with its long life and all that. Then again, Land of Giants, centuries. Robin says they do, but most of it is archaeology and history. Saul then says, we got some medical books from here in Elbaf. Chopper says, wow, I want to see them. Though Saul says, but they were always big, so they can't shrink down. Chopper says, aw. Oh, too bad, Chopper. Well, then again, grow a monster point. Maybe you could read them then. Then again, given the drawbacks, it might not be worth it. Meanwhile, Usopp and Luffy are riding on a giant swing with some kids who are freaking out and crying, while Luffy says, yoo-hoo, push harder. Oh, this is great. I love this giant swing. Only for them to be later beaten down by Nami. Luffy says, Nami says, those children were terrified. Usopp says, I tried to stop them. The children then go nuzzling into Gerd, saying, oh, Miss Gerd, they're scaring us. As Gerd says, oh, you poor things. Luffy shouts, hey, a warrior shouldn't be crying, it's pathetic. Sanji says, stop it, Luffy. The children here are raised to be kind of well-meaning and pure. Only for Sanji to then go, huh? And that same familiar look from way back when with Momonosuke crosses one of the kids' faces. As he just has this grin on his face as he just ingers boobs. As Sanji says, oh, you smug little brat, is that just a universal trait? It's a good question. Luffy says, I'm really sad about this. Usopp says, I know how you feel. Well, you can't complain about Elbaf trying to live in peace. Only for a sword to come slamming down next to him, with the person saying, I found you, Straw Hat Luffy. Luffy is knocked back, and he says, hey, what happened to being peaceful? As Colin says, I've got you now, as he swings his sword, only for Luffy to just easily break it. Luffy then speed blitzes upward, taking Colin off guard, as Luffy says, Gear 3, Gum Gum, Elephant Gun, nearly missing hitting Colin. I don't think he was actually trying to hit him, though. Usopp says, hey, take it easy. Luffy says, what? I didn't hit him. Usopp says, even still. Someone shrieks as Usopp says, it's going down. Luffy says, hee, I laugh. At least someone here has got some backbone. Though the kids say, you're scaring us, Luffy. We hate violence. Though Colin is overjoyed, saying, that was awesome. I could totally tell you're an Emperor of the Sea. Though the kids say, we hate you too, Colin. The wild child is here. You don't even go to school. He doesn't even go here. He doesn't even go here. Oh, man. Points to you if you know what that reference is. But Colin says, shut up, losers. I hate you sniveling weaklings, too. One of the other kids say, he's so vicious. And to Ripley, who says, there you go, causing trouble again, Colin. That was a really good swing, though. He gives a thumbs up. Wait. MILF alert. Colin says, oh, here. It's your favorite, Mom. It's from Mato. Okay, so Mato. Right, okay, there it is. Mato is the lady at the bar. Not Colin's mom. Ripley is Colin's mom. Honestly, I don't really see the resemblance. Sanji says, what? Mom? You mean Ripley? You're not teaching him the same lessons your school is? You should probably apologize about the sneak attack, though. Colin says, my dad's a human, you know. They say, huh? He used to be a pirate. He could even hold his own against Elbaf warriors. While Ripley says, aw, Lingon berries, how sweet. Sanji says, your father's a human? Ripley says, he's a younger man, actually. He keeps sulking that he's the only one who ages, and that's why he won't marry me. So I've always been his common law wife. Sanji says, who does this guy think he is anyway? I mean, given the lifespan of most humans, well, then again, I don't know. I mean, Kureha has lived for a long time. If you have the same secrets as Kureha, shoot. And depending on how old Ripley is, it could work out. But dang. I have a lot of questions about how this worked out. There's so many dirty jokes running through my mind right now, and it's just like, I really shouldn't say any of these things. I can only imagine the comments for when this chapter came out. Luffy says, yeah, even the library is cool. The books are all huge. As Robin says, Luffy, I want to catch up with Saul, so I'll stop by the feast later. While Saul said, there, she. It'll be fine. Their feasts all last 3 days and nights. The Chopper says, I'll stay too. Luffy says, okay, got it. Lil says, don't worry about me. I've got to go ask for permission to put down roots here. Well, Bonnie says, me too. Okay, I guess this is the destination that Lilith and Bonnie are hanging out at, because Lilith's trying to set up a lab here, and Bonnie's not leaving her dad. I don't see that happening, so I guess we're dropping them off here. Makes enough sense. And we just had a big old adventure with the two of them. I know some people thought they were going to be the next Straw Hats, but I'm like, look, after everything that went down with the Karen and Yamato situation, I'm like, I'm not banking on any new Straw Hats joining anytime soon or ever at this point. I mean, I just related Loki to Zoro, but I mean, unless Loki has the ability to shrink and has the mini no me, I don't see it happening. Enter Frankie, who says, oh god, I can't do, listen up. Turns out the whole island is an Adam tree. It's the ultimate tree whose wood I used to build the Sunny. Jewel Tree Adam. Well, Saul says, yeah, there are several Adam trees in the world, but this one's by far the oldest. Okay, so there's a lot of Adam trees. Interesting. Frankie says, I'm going to soak in the majesty of the Jewel Tree. Luffy says, all right, you guys, fine. We'll go back first. I'm about ready to start by now. So Gerd says, I have a request for everyone. They say, what is it, Gerd? Get them all in the outfit. I feel like Gerd isn't so dissimilar to Road. She's just a little less creepy about it. It's like, I need everyone decked out in Elbath apparel. We were waiting for it, so here it is. Brooke says, why, thank you. Do I look like a warrior? Robin says, these are lovely. Thank you, Gerd. Frankie says, you're killing it, Brooke. How about me? I definitely feel stronger. But how did you have all these clothes in our size? Gerd says, I have a hobby of making human clothes. That's all, though. Honestly, nothing else. Yeah. Like, Gerd, I'm starting to feel like you have a little less reason to criticize Road as we go on. She thinks to herself, oh my gosh, they're so cute. He then tells him, I'm so happy you like them. Jinbei says, these are surprisingly comfortable and easy to move around in. Jinbei approved. Luffy says, okay, see you guys in the village. So I guess we leave behind Chopper, Robin, Lilith, Bonnie, Frankie? I think Frankie said he wanted to stay behind. I think that's about it. Okay. So, headed to the banquet is Usopp, Luffy, Nami, Zoro, Sanji, Jinbei, Brooke. Okay, I think that's it. Yes. Luffy says, okay, see you guys in the village. And as they head off on Gerd's little rose ship, the others call out, we'll catch up later. Oh. Yeah, okay, this is definitely not Shanks. We pick up at Alrust Castle in the western village of Elbath. Two giants say, it's we humans. How did we let you get in? We failed as guards. Are you in the Straw Hat crew? You must be if you're in this country. The young girl in the cloak says, we are looking for the person named Loki. The bigger giant says, yeah. Loki, what do you want with a criminal like him? The smaller of the two says, he killed King Harold, beloved by all the people of the realm. He's the scourge of Elbath, and no one's in this castle. The girl then says, then where is he? Answer me. The bigger one says, can't tell you that, just in case you mean to free him. The girl says, so you will not say? The giant says, nope, sorry. Suddenly, something is fired out from under the girl's cloak. The bigger giant reacts in shock, saying, huh? The bigger one staggers, saying, hey, what kind of joke is this? He then falls to his knees in pain. Does she shoot him? The other giant says, huh? Hey, what's wrong? The giant then doubles over onto the ground, writhing in pain. Saying, The girl says, behave yourself, you insolent lout. Did you think I asked you a question? They arrived in the pentagram. So are they celestial dragons? The God's Knights? Okay. Because unless there's some Gorosei, maybe Garling is making his move. Now he's trying to be more proactive. Huh. Okay. The other giants, the girl says, I gave you an order to answer me. The other giant says, hey, what's happening? He then cut away, deeper into the village down below. in the western village of Elbaf, as Luffy and Usopp are cheering, saying, "From the distant East Blue, we have come at last to this place." The giants cheer, "Hey, it's the Straw Hat crew!" As Luffy says, "The land of giants, at last!" Usopp says, "The kingdom of the world's strongest warriors." Brogy says, "We're glad you're here. We've been awaiting you." Dory says, "These are the pipsqueak humans who understood and protected our warrior's pride." Oimo and Kashin say, "The ones who freed us from a prison of our own ignorance." Harley says, "Who saved my life when I was in danger of vanishing into nothing." Yeah, I mean, shoot, that major connections to multiple giants out here. When 5 giants are all praising them, dang. Brogy says, "Welcome to Elbaf welcomes these little friends to our land." The giants cheer as Zoro's already in the back drinking up a storm. They say, "They might be small, but don't overlook them." Luffy's just laughing as he eats and drinks. As Brogy continues on. "On the sea, the Straw Hat Luffy is a great pirate, one of the 4 emperors. He was front and center in the Great Wano incident where that monster Kaido and Big Mom fell in battle." They all cheer as Nami covers her ears from the loudness. Yeah, aside from the drink, this isn't really normally Nami's scene. But all the giants raise their mugs and cheer, saying, "To the Straw Hats, we raise these friends' cups. Cheers!" Ah! Oh, there he is, Drool. There is a sword sticking out of that man's head. When did that happen? Okay, I guess, well, I know who it is. I guess we see Drool, Beard Hill. Yeah, so, wait, wasn't it originally Mountain Beard? You had Mountain Beard and Fall Beard. And isn't he, like, too old at this point? 408. Isn't that longer than most giants live? Oh my god, he's even bigger than Brogy. Why is he so big? Even by normal giant standards, he's too big. Drool says, "Mojaja, I can hear them from here. Looks like the Straw Hats are back." As Luffy says, "What? You're the giant they had captured back in Sabaody?" Oh, okay. Finally talking to Stenson about him being the giant that they had encountered back at Sabaody, who Rayleigh helped free. This the very same. Stenson at your service. When I heard from Harden that he was under your lead, it felt like fate was at work." And they remember him saying, "I will repay this debt to you. Thank you." A Stenson refresher. Abducted while napping. He was taken while napping, dang. Oh, poor Stenson. This old friend of Harden was nearly sold off at the human auction hall. Lucky for him, the Straw Hat crew wrecked the auction for an unrelated reason, and thus he escaped slavery. Luffy just laughs. Okay, I see. Yeah, I'm glad you made it out. Enter Jarul, saying, "Everyone having fun?" The others say, "Chief Jarul, it's Chief Jarul." He says, "Huh? Who's that?" And Jarul says, "Boja-cha-cha-cha. I hear we've got some little guests." As Brogy says, "Chief Jarul, come all the way to the village." The Otobox says, Beard Hill Jarul, hero of the giants, oldest in the world, age 408. 408 error. Usopp says, "Look at this giant. He's like a walking hill." Luffy is aghast, and then he says, "Hey, old man, there's a sword sticking in your head." And Drool just says, "Cha-cha-cha-cha. Oh, this? Oh, not to worry, the helmet saved my life." So Luffy says, "It's going all the way through." Yeah, exactly. I mean, he doesn't seem to be missing any faculties, so... Just like a thorn. I don't know how to feel about that. The old man has a sword sticking through his head. How are you still alive, old man? He just might not be able to die. Okay, I gotta look at like older pictures. Yeah, Mountain Beard Jarul. Yeah, he did not have that sword sticking out of his head before. Yeah, he was with Waterfall Beard Jorul, or Beardfall. And these old men were already on death's door to begin with, but it's just like, oh god, I guess Jorul had a few more years of life left in him if Jarul lived this long. Like, god dang. And he doesn't seem like he's senile or anything. Okay, true. I guess the old man just has a lot to live for after the death of King Harold. Alright, next chapter is One Piece, chapter 1136. The Land That Awaits the Sun. See, I was questioning whether or not Hold'em was the one behind all of this, but it looks like it's Who's Who is in charge. Don't ask me now how I know, but something just makes me think that Who's Who might be behind all of this. What a jerk. He was already a steaming racist when we were first introduced to him, and just letting his hate for somebody else dictate how he felt about Luffy, but apparently he's been kidnapping people too. In Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage Volume 22, a mysterious base deep in Udon. Okay. He's determined to establish himself as Big Boss. As we enter into One Piece Chapter 1136, the land that awaits the sun. I think I already said that. As Luffy's just chowing down on some... Seriously, he is huge. Like, he's twice the size of most other giants. God dang. But Luffy's chowing down on some meat saying, it's so good. This moose tastes like dinosaur. Ja Rule says, I'm surprised you got one. Moose is delicious, but the beasts are very fierce. Harden says, I'd risk any danger for the man who saved my life. Luffy says, thanks a bunch, Harden. And Stanson? Harden says, yeah, I'm glad you like it. Ja Rule says, it's not often that humans come up here to the sun world. Usually they don't know how to get here. So they assume the underworld is an Elbas and end up fleeing. I mean, that makes sense. From what we saw of most of Elbas, we would have thought the same thing too. Luffy says, really? But Oris was a vicious warrior whose story has been passed down through our history. Oh, okay, I guess this is another conversation. Issa says, that's right. He was 3 times the size of any of you. And the man who finished him off was me. Usopp says, and they cheer, yeah, Captain Usopp. Some other giants look at Jinbei saying, your skin really is blue. Folks are even more colorful at Fishman Island. I think that's Jinbei saying that. Folks are even more colorful at Fishman Island, like all the fish in the sea. One giant says, I hope to see a mermaid one day. Of course. Sanji says, they're beautiful gentlemen. The mermaid inlet is like heaven on earth. Another giant says, whoa. Sanji says, but I feel like I'm ascending to heaven just being in the presence of so many giant angels. The giant women say, aw, Sanji, you're so cute. Sanji says, woohoo, I'm drowning in beautiful women. That's about right. The giant then asks Brook, and what are you then? Brook says, me? Why? I've got the What Am I Blues, yeah, as he rocks on his guitar. The giant says, a toast to the wonders of the vast world. Zoro says, kinda surprised at how many giants haven't ever gone to sea. Yeah, a lot of them has questions. Then again, it's not like we see a lot of giants out there in the world. Even in terms of filler stuff, there are not a lot of giants who have gone out to sea. But then again, given how a lot of giants have either been captured, executed, a lot of situations that haven't ended well, I can understand the isolationist tendency. But Nami says, right? I thought all the giants on Elbaf were pirates. Only for a very beat up road to darken the base of their feet, saying, ultra rare Nami, ultra rare straw hat, forgive me for my earlier indiscretion. Though Gerd tells him, no forgiveness for you. Make sure you apologize. Rosa thinks to himself, this is awakening something in me. Punish me, Gerd. Road. Road. Zoro says, don't worry about it. Nobody died. That's rather nice of you, Zoro. Says, but only because Usopp stopped us from fighting back. As he chugs down some booze and then wipes his face, he says, now for that, your head would have left your shoulders. Road freaks out, jumping back as the other giants just laugh at him and say, look at Road. What, you don't know what their bounties are? You don't stand a chance against them. Oh yeah, that's about right. Like, Road, buddy, do you know what these people's bounties are? Like, you were never gonna get one over on them. Gordon says, and the next time he tries something, you just go ahead and do that. She makes a cutting motion as Rose says, my Gerd. Though he thinks to himself, this is so stimulating. Road, It sucks too, because I thought Road's design was so cool before, only for him to turn out like this. Bummer. Road then says, you don't understand. That was a dream. That's held by everyone born in Elbaf. We all wish to be the sun god and rule the world. Zoro says, sun god? But the giants chatter amongst themselves, don't be a fool. The sun god isn't a ruler. Yeah, he's the god of liberation. No, a god of destruction. Wrong. He's the god of laughter. Oh, see, that's what a lot of the conflicting stuff we've heard. We've heard so many things of what a sun god is all over the place, and that also explains why some people have claimed to be the sun god, because the sun god has been described as so many different things in mythology and stuff like that. That's actually kind of interesting. Luffy says, they're brawling now? What's this about a god? As he watches the fight ensue, that Road has also found himself embroiled, and Ja Rule explains, Elbas is home to an ancient religious text known as the Harley. Harley Quinn? Because it is so ancient, there are many interpretations of it. Yeah, that sounds familiar. As Luffy continues to chow down, Ja Rule explains, it continues to be passed down, even though no one can translate it anymore. Henceforth the confusion. According to Harley, the world has twice been destroyed in the past. Wait, twice? Twice? We know about the destruction from the flood. Did something else happen? And in each case, the presence of the Nika, the sun god, is closely tied to it. Luffy says Nika. Ja Rule goes on to say, is he the hero who appeared to save the world from disaster? The destroyer who lays waste to all? He appears when the world is about to undergo a transformation. Therefore, the great and mighty of the day always fear Nika's arrival. Luffy says, oh yeah, Nika. Bonnie was talking about that guy. Ja Rule says, because he is the god of the sun, it is those without hope who seek him the most. Nika wears white clouds around him and appears with white hair, clothes, and a jolly laughter. Luffy says, that must be why everyone said I remind them of him. That has nothing to do with me. Benson then says, go on, don't ruin all the fun, Straw Hat. Haru then says, everyone born in Elbas. And then Goldberg says, idolizes Nika growing up. Luffy says, no, I think it's Haruden who says, though I won't defend whatever that moron Rhoda was doing. Luffy says, Ja Rule then says, even Loki and the late Herald, in a sense, are the result of attempting to be Nika, perhaps. Though the giant says, you don't have to rationalize Loki's actions that way, Chief Ja Rule. Luffy says, oh, Loki. Is Loki a good guy? And everyone else say, absolutely not. They say, he's the accursed prince. Even before Loki's birth, King Harold prophesied that he would be killed by his own son. Shortly after he was born, he killed the royal family's lucky horse. See, this also feels like Odin, where he was described as someone of great misfortune. He did a lot of these terrible things. Another giant says that was the same year Linlin killed Chief Joro, the legendary warrior. The country was beset by natural disasters, and the queen passed just a year after giving birth to Loki. A year after? He made the underworld his playground, using his innate strength to kill and control the vicious animals down there, and then unleashed them on villages at just 10 years old. Arson, devastation. Loki's many pranks threatened our lives. Between his status as a prince and his cruel personality, he made our lives hell whenever King Harold was away. And then worst of all, Jinbei seems listening intently. Loki killed King Harold, the greatest king in Elbas history, right in his own castle up there. The kind and radiant king who had tried to connect Elbas with the other countries of the world that were so terrified of our warlike ways. Chief Ja Rule was there and tried to stop Loki. That's when he got stabbed in the head. Well, Ja Rule says, this helmet saved my life. Luffy says, the helmet didn't do anything. Okay, so Ja Rule saw it though. Though then again, I could understand that helmet, the sword in his helmet maybe affects his memory. Luffy says, oh no. Ja Rule says, it was about 6 years ago, I believe, that Redhead caught Loki rampaging at sea for us. Luffy says, Shanks did that? So it was Shanks who caught Loki. Luffy says, oh, I heard that Shanks is here. Another giant says, he was around a little while ago. I don't know where he went, though. Zoro seems to have honed in on something. Cut to the outskirts of town. Zoro says, I thought it was weird how fidgety you were. This would explain it. That guy killed the king. The whole country hates him. Obviously, everything he told you was a lie. Luffy says, but he said he knows where Shanks is. Do you have any idea how much I want to see him? Zoro says, yes. You talk about it all the time. It's a way for him to take advantage of you. Luffy then says, you think Loki doesn't even know? Zoro says, I'm just basing it on his reputation. I didn't see the guy. Cut to Luffy thinking of Loki's words. I'll tell you everything I know, including where red hair it is now. Luffy says, if he's lying, I'm not letting him go. I'll beat him up instead. I don't think he's lying. I don't know. Something doesn't seem right about a lot of this. Because that's the thing. Most times we arrive at an island, what seems to be is never exactly what it seems to be. There's always some twist. There's always some turn. There's always, like, we think one way, turns out it's something else. If everyone's so determined to say this, I don't believe it's true. Something ain't right here. Katsunami saying, as they're aboard Bird's ship, but it's being rowed by Rodo. Nami says, I wondered why you were sneaking around. Have you guys ever gotten to your destination without me? Zoro says, listen up, Luffy. I'll get the keys to his cuff, but we're going to decide if he's telling the truth or not. Luffy says, got it, thanks. So, why is he here anyway? Nami says, he's my servant now. Really? Rodo says, it's an honor. Though it looked like it took a little shock therapy to get there. Ugh. Hey, so did we leave behind Jinbei, Brook, and Usopp? Seems so. Okay, so we have Group 1, which is Luffy, Zoro, Nami. Group 2, which is Usopp, Jinbei, Brook, Sanji, and Group 3, which is Robin and Chopper, and everyone else. Robin, Chopper, Frankie. There we go. Robin, Chopper, Frankie. Okay. I think that's about right. People always question why the Straw Hats don't just stay together. It's like, dude, look, it's a big group. You don't normally stay together like that. But Zeus says, but I'm servant number 1, and Sanji is servant number 2. Got that? God. Oh my god. Rodo says to you, what a stimulating torture method. I hate Rodo. So much more as we go along. Zoro says, you zapped him? Rodo says, I think we share a lot in common, both being navigators. Nami says, never try to close the distance between us again. Rodo says, no, of course not. God damn. Never try to relate us in any way ever again. Nami then says, I feel bad that we're taking the star of the show away. Luffy says, I brought some meat. Did you try any of this mousse yet? Rhoda says, they're all properly hammered now. They won't even remember what the feast was for. I think it's Nami who says, it's such a shame that the treasure in the castle will be disappearing. What do you think, Rhoda? Rhoda says, my eyesight is poor. I doubt I would even be able to tell it's gone. I don't know who's saying it, but they say, so that's why you're here, Nami. Nami turns with berries in her eyes saying, huh? They say, your eyes. Cut to somewhere else, someone laughing. Doga. So that's what this is about. In the underworld, Loki laughs. All right, I take your point. In that case, I refuse. You think I'm going to spend the one life I have stooping to the level of trash? Gee, thanks for the invitation to the most noble knighthood in the world. So what are you then, celestial dragons? The Knotshank says, where's the intel from? The girl, Gunko. Yep, Holy Knight Gunko. There it is. Oh, yep, there it is. Who seems to have, is her sleeve turning into an arrow? Is she Medusa from Soul Eater? Gunko says, the agents dispatched to Elbas sent one last transmission that a giant crow had appeared. Nothing since then. We don't have any dirt on him. Oh, so some of the people captured were agents from the Holy Knight. Gunko says, but now that I hear him for myself, he is supremely insolent. Otterbox says, Holy Knight Gunko, we should simply erase him. As she readies one of her arrows? Wait, arrow? Didn't Im have an arrow ability? But she's Gunko. Unless she got that ability from Imu. The Knotshank says, don't get a hold of yourself, Gunko. It's one of the wolves' friends of Loki approaches. Oh god. Loki laughs. Gobble them up, wolf. And as the wolf approaches Gunko, she raises her hand, turning her sleeve into an arrow, saying, hey, you breathed on me. The arrow twirls around her. She flicks it upward, twirls around the wolf's neck. Loki says, what? Hey, wolf! And then the arrow, as she points upward, the arrow hangs the wolf. Jesus. Loki shouts, wolf! Knotshank says, because Loki isn't recognizing this Shanks' voice. He said he was captured by Shanks. he talked about knowing Shanks. If this was Shanks, he'd recognize the voice, right? He'd be a lot more pissed off than this, I think. Not Shanks says, if we offered to spare his life, would you change your mind? Loki says, you're offering me a deal? In that case, your fate is sealed, my friend. Die and be at peace. Yes, I will be sad and... Oh, he's talking to a wolf. Your fate is sealed, my friend. Die and be at peace. Yes, I'll be sad, as well as angry. But a warrior doesn't quibble and whine about his way of death. And thus the wolf is strangled to death. As the Not Shanks and Gunko pause, Loki, still smiling but obviously angry, says, instead I'll feed on this rage and use it to bring this world to ruin. Still saying this, but you're in a pretty compromised position here, Loki. Why are they after him, though? Do they just want more servant? I mean, he is an outcast. Maybe the death of King Harold was set up by them. I wonder. Alright, on to the next chapter. One Piece chapter 1137, introducing Shamrock. New Giant, and Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest, Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 23, Infiltrate the Sketchy Hideout. Yeah, I still feel like this just might be Who's Hideout. Don't know why. Yeah, I got a bunch of dudes dressed in cat ears. But I didn't expect this to end up being a Tama and Yamato adventure. Alright, let's jump in. We cut to Arust Castle in Elbath. So we about to meet those god knights. Oh no, they've already made their way down to the lower realms. So no, we just missed them. Rhoda says, in the 14 years since King Harold's death, no one has dared approach this castle, or so I thought. Wait, 14 years since his death? I thought Loki was 14 years since his death. Okay, I'm gonna have to double check something somewhere down the line. But that does explain why Loki... Well, no, because Cullen's existence shows that there's no issue with giants being in relations with humans. So, no, but even if Loki had married Lola, that wouldn't change anything, because most people didn't really care for Loki's existence. And does that time frame match up? 14 years since King Harold's death? But hasn't Loki only been locked away for 6 years? I feel like I'm missing something. Rhodes says, or so I thought, but it's clear that someone has broken through the door, and there are no guards standing watch. Wait, what happened to the guards? Did they not even leave the bodies? Nami says, so this is a bad sign then. Zoro says, intruders. But these doors were broken from the inside. Luffy says, we'll figure it out when we get in there. He then goes rushing in saying, keys, keys. While Zoro, examining the door, says, this destruction looks fresh. As Rhoda creeps into the door, he says, wait, please, wait. This is frightening. So Luffy calls out, wow, this castle is huge. While Zoro says, I can't even see the ceiling. While Nami says, it's way too big. I can't walk across this. I can't walk across this. It actually is kind of funny. This is one of the few times we've actually had a Luffy, Zoro, Nami kind of adventure situation. Luffy then says, hey Rhoda, where are the keys? Rhoda says, I'm just a common man. I've never been inside the castle. While Nami says, but we're very lucky to have you with us. Rhoda says, really, Ultra Rare Nami? Well, Zoro says, I was just thinking the same thing. Onward. Yeah, we're lucky to have you with them as a riding mule. Oh, at least he gets to kind of make up for everything he did earlier. As they make their way further in. Okay, it's Rhoda who says, so this is what it's like in here. I'm overcome with both wonder and fear. I think maybe Nami asks, is all of this destruction from the intruders? Rhoda says, no. King Harold passed after a vicious battle with Loki. What you see are the scars of that fight. Zoro says, that's some serious devastation. Rhoda says Loki is a monster to be sure, but King Harold was also known as a great warrior on his own. Destruction was inevitable. Luffy says, whoa, it's huge. Nami says, wait, what is this? It's horrifying. It's like a giant graveyard. As he comes upon a room filled with skulls and swords. Rhoda says, yes, naturally. There were many soldiers in the castle. Loki slew over 100 stout warriors that day. The only survivors among the castle were Chief Jarul and Loki himself. That's odd. Why would it only have been them to survive? It was such a shocking and bloody scene that it was agreed the castle should be sealed and left untouched afterward. Perhaps it is now haunted by vengeful spirits. While Luffy says, check it out, you guys. Look how big the skull is. It's even got horns. Is it like ours? Rhoda explains. The largest bones belong to the warriors with the blood of ancient giants. There are no longer any pure bloods, but some still have traces of it in their history. In fact, King Harold himself was very large and mighty. Ah, just look up. I haven't seen that visage in years. That is a portrait of King Harold, the man who loved peace and attempted to bridge the gap between Elbath and the rest of the world. The greatest king in the history of Elbath, they say. Luffy says he looks strong. Hey, he's got a lot of scars. Rhoda says the scarring on his head is where he ripped out his horns, the mark of his ancient giant blood. To him, ancient giants were a reminder of our era of war. Are the horns on Loki's head, are they not part of the helmet? So, not to mention, maybe Black Maria? Do the likes of Kaido and Yamato have the blood of giants? Ancient giants? They're called ogres, but maybe that's just another name for ancient giants having mixed with humans. Nami looks on in shock. Luffy questions, he had horns? Well, Zoro says that takes serious guts. As Road continues into the castle, he says his majesty's death was a shock to all, but it was the hardest upon the other son of King Harold, Haruden, who had the most cause to hate Loki for his action. Luffy says, what? Really? Yeah, just learning that that Haruden is a prince. I guess technically. Nami questions, he and Loki are brothers? Yeah, brothers from other mothers. Road says, yes, but from different mothers. Haruden was born to another woman prior to Harold's marriage to the queen. Oh, okay, so it wasn't any mistress or anything, but she wasn't like of royal blood or something? Road says, you see, Elbath did not allow for Haruden's mother to be queen. Nami questions, how come? Road says, she was from a different giant nation. Different nation. So she wasn't local. Zoro questions, what does that matter? You're all giants. Rodo then says, we're all giants. Do you humans not wage war over land and resources as well? Which stops Zoro in his tracks saying, oh, yeah. Like, hey, you got me there. You make a good point, Road. Rodo says giants from other areas will tarnish the blood of Elba. Nami says you have some really bigoted views about other giants and humans. Rodo says, oh, but you're different. Nami says, don't suck up to me, scum. Rodo says, aw. But, I mean, he makes a good point. Like, humans ain't so different. To find out that giants have that same kind of mentality, just like, well, shit, I guess we're not all that different. Zoro then says, so if Harden's blood is tarnished, why do you ride with his crew? Rhoda says, because you have a bit of a flashback where we see some kids teasing Rhoda, where they call him Rhodo the nerd, what a creep. And Rhoda cries. And we see a young Harden looking at something saying, wow, this is amazing. You can draw sea charts? Show me how to do it. Rhoda says, you want to be my friend? Harden says, huh? Friend? It seems like they incidentally became friends. Road, a little embarrassed, says, unlike me, he is a truly honest and straightforward man. Despite being unable to live in the castle with his father and seeing the way his mother was tormented, he withstood all of that pain and said, I want to unify all of giant kind. So I guess in Road's perspective, Harden's mindset is simply that Road's mindset to Harden is that he sees someone who has every reason to be depressed, but Harden just kind of takes it all in stride, wanting to excel and strive for something better for all of Giant. We cut back to the party where Harden raises his mug saying, I am the man who will be king of all giants. Well, I'm not sure who's saying it, Stenson or Gerd, because you don't have Goldberg's list. But they say, I know you can do it. And some girls shout, Harden! He's popular with the ladies. Rhodes says, I want to help his dream come true. Zoro says, so you can be reasonable after all. Kind of boring. Just like, Zoro's pissed because he's just like, and here I thought I could just cut you up for being a jerk, but you actually have some layers to you. Oh, that's no fun. And Nami just laughs. Luffy calls out, hey, come check it out. Some giants are knocked over out over here. Everyone is shocked. Oh, what the heck? Man, these boots were made for stomping, my god. We cut to the underworld of Elbas, where Loki is getting the absolute dog shit beaten out of him. As Gunko says, is it sinking in yet? A bloodied Loki says, I told you already. I can't move. The Knot Shank says, doesn't change our question. Gunko says, a member of the common rabble, receiving a chance to join the ranks of gods is a miracle one can only dream of, and we are offering you that miracle now. As Gunko, using her arrows, forms giant boots made for kicking teeth in, I guess. Okay, what is this? So, I'm not sure what I'm looking at. An arrow comes out of whatever's around Gunko's feet. I thought it was maybe blood or something, but I'm not sure. The arrow comes up, points to Loki's cheek, as Loki says, damn it, not again. And then another arrow points upward. The arrows don't disappear though. Loki says, so your foot's gonna accelerate to kick my right cheek. And after I've turned the other way, Gunko motions, and Loki says, you'll give me an uppercut with that fist of yours. Thanks for the heads up. Yes. Yeah, Gunko's sleeve turns into like a gauntlet. Oh, okay, so the arrow's making gauntlet. That is kind of wild. Like Medusa could do that, and I'm kind of glad she couldn't. My god. Gunko says, these arrows are the confirmed path of my very future, a declaration of unavoidable violence, but it is possible for me to change course. And from the looks of things, that course doesn't change. Gunko tells him, so I ask you again, Loki, will you join the Holy Knight? She walks across one of her arrows towards Loki, as Loki says, hell no, moron. And thus, Gunko is accelerated forward by her arrow towards Loki, and just as she foretold, slams him in the face with her foot. Then she spins, takes the gauntlet she formed out of her arrows, and uppercuts Loki in the jaw. My god, violence is right. Just volleywopping him. Loki's head hits the back of the tree. Oh jeez. As we see that meanwhile, Gunko's arrows have skewered the last of Loki's animal friends. Jeez. Loki, out of breath, says, damn it, you'll regret this. As Gunko forms another arrow in front of Loki's face, and as he looks up, he sees a multitude of arrows now pointed at his face, and he says, stop! Enough already! Gunko says, then you will join? And Loki just sticks out his tongue, saying, yeah! And then you hear his screams as he is just laid into again and again and again. The Knot Shank, sitting over by the downed, skewered wolf, takes a moment. I'm not sure if it's Gunko who seems to be breathing heavy, but the Knot Shanks then takes off his cloak. Yep, Shanks has a twin brother. Sure enough. The man says, let's change tactics. Contact Marijal, as we're introduced to Commander of the Holy Knights, World Noble, Figureland Shamrock, son of Saint Garling of the Five Elders. Okay, even more confirmation that Figureland Garling is Shanks' father. And we also have Holy Knights Gunko, Arrow Woman with the arrow fruit. Yeah, who would have thought? Man, with those giant gauntlets, she looks like Strength from those Black Rock Shooter anime. Shamrock says, I'm sick of all these useless people. I'd hoped we could have settled this much more cleanly. Gunko says, indeed. It seems he'd rather die than join us. Is this some religious thing? It's actually kind of interesting. So they're willing to recruit people who aren't even nobles? Wait, is York now one of the Holy Knights? Was she able to ascend by becoming one of the Holy Knights? Because given the way they're doing things, and given that Gunko doesn't have any last name, maybe she was a commoner who was made to be a Holy Knight. I wonder what she looks like in color. Shamrock says, the vicious warriors of Elbas who conquered the New World long, long ago will be brought under the command of the world government once and for all. So that's the rub. They're trying to make it so that with everything that happened with Wano, more than likely they're now more determined than ever to bring another strong nation under heel. They keep getting giants, but at every turn, giants manage to kind of slip out of their fingers to a certain degree. Man, they are just obsessed with getting giants under their control. All right, next is One Piece chapter 1138, The Harley. And on the cover, we have Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest, Surrogate Pilgrimage, Volume 24. It was Who's Who all along. Who would have thought? Kidnapping women and various different people. I guess, yeah, he kidnapped the carpenter, I guess, to make this place. Hey, you have the cat girls. Why do you need more women? No, then again, that's just how some people are. He wants to live it up like a wannabe Kaido, I see. We cut to Loki, brutalized, breathing heavy. Oh, he actually mentions it. Loki says, for as much as you look like him, you gotta be related to that red-haired pirate. Shamrock turns, pausing. Gunko then says, hold your tongue. That's nothing you need to know. Loki says, true, it ain't my business. But a great pirate and a celestial dragon standing on opposing sides of world power. The fact that you have the same face is bound to draw curiosity. Okay, so he can see through the bandages. Is that observation, Aki? Or is it something more? Shamrock says, that pirate is my estranged younger twin brother. He returned to the Holy Land once, but he seems to prefer the filth of the lower world. So he did one day come to the upper realm. I wonder when that was. Dude, he probably relates a lot to Sabo, let's be honest. So Shanks solidly knows. And that would explain why in Film Red, they knew. Oh, he must be a member of the... they mentioned is Uta a member of the Figureland family, which causes a whole different line of trouble, but nope. Not a child through birth. Loki says, returned. I see. Your bloodline has earned my ire twice over. How fascinating. Our two separated brothers should each be targets of my wrath. You'll rule this day. Once I get these chains off. Man, you keep saying that, buddy. You keep saying that. You know what'll happen, don't you? I watched my friend's fate decided before my eyes, and now I bear the cost of it. Shamrock says, you dream of threatening me? Gunko tells him, Commander, don't let him. But Shamrock unsheaths his sword, saying, indeed, it's not worth dirtying my own hands. Oh, he has the Cerberus fruit. So I guess Blackbeard doesn't have the Cerberus fruit like a lot of people were theorizing. Or is there more to it? Because Eam had arrows and Gunko has arrows. Is it something where Eam is able to assimilate devil fruit abilities and distribute them? Because the Cerberus even has the black scarf that a lot of awakened zones have. But Shamrock brings out his sword. He says, you do it, Cerberus. And the sword begins to emanate black inky clouds and teeth, much to Loki's shock, as it forms into Cerberus, the three-headed dog of the underworld. Loki says, huh? What is that? And out of one of the dog's mouth, a sword comes out. It shocks Loki even more. As Shamrock says, it's my sword. God. And a sword comes out of each of the dog's mouths. As Loki says, whoa, that's creepy. What's wrong with them? Then the collar around the dog's neck begins to spin. That seems like overkill. As the dogs get ready to move in, Loki says, huh? Gunko tells him, extinguish your presence, Commander. We need to move. Shamrock says, scramble. What the heck? The three heads of Cerberus with the blade sticking out hop off at the collars, flying into the air. Shamrock then says return, and the remaining body reforms into a sword. Oh, Gunko was making a bird. Shamrock jumps into the makeshift bird and they fly off. He sells Loki as they take off. If you should survive, come and kill me. I'll be ready for you. Loki says, wait a damn second. Oh God. He says, you have to be joking. As the three heads of Cerberus start to turn. Oh God. And they all aim right for Loki. Loki says, you don't mean it. Even I can't handle getting run through by those. Curse you celestial dragons. Damn you all to hell. He says just as the three blades of Cerberus all pierce his body. Davis. I doubt he's dead, but God, I doubt it was fun. Shamrock says pacifying them all at once will be too hard. We need to get to the warrior's children first. Call one more. Gunko says very well. Which one? One more what? Holy Night? We then cut over to Aris Castle in Elbath. The giants say, I know what I saw. It was red hair. Luffy says, liar, Shanks wouldn't beat you guys up without a good reason. The bigger giant says, but it's true. I'd recognize him anywhere. Red hair has been to Elbath many times. Luffy says, yeah, I guess he would. Shanks is really cool. This guy must have looked just like him. The other giant says, we were shocked to see him. We thought, what's he doing inside the castle? Zoro says, red hair was just in Elbath, right? So it's not out of the question that he would still be in the area. But Luffy says, but if what you're saying is true, that wasn't Shanks. Shanks is a cheerful guy who isn't full of himself. And he never does anything messed up like he never does anything messed up like that. Nami chuckles, saying he trusts him so much. Though Luffy gets angry, saying, of course I do not. Look, Nami, wouldn't you be mad if someone said stuff like that about Molly Mare? He got closer than I thought he would. Though Nami says, you mean Bellmare? The giants say amongst themselves, so I guess they were two identical people? Another says, maybe brothers? Luffy says, Shanks' brother. I guess that could be true. See, we are immediately making sure that everybody understands Shanks' twin brother. Shanks' twin brother, just bam. I mean, the thing is, whereas some might say it's just like, oh, that seems a little hackneyed to have a twin brother, yada yada, long lost twin brother, blah blah blah. I mean, we don't run into that many twins in One Piece. That's the thing. And twins exist. I mean, shoot, we've had plenty of twins thanks to Big Mom, but the family is in such close proximity that the twins, the decuplets, the triplets, like, there's so many multitudes of siblings who are identical to a certain degree, and even unidentical. She has more unidentical children than identical children. And Luffy says, but I've never heard him talk about his family. Just that he was on a pirate ship ever since he was little. Oh, the figure is moving towards the castle. Is it Shiki, though? I'm really wondering. I thought Roger and Rayleigh and those guys were his family. The Roger pirates, aside from Buggy. I don't know if this figure can hear everything that's being said. Oh, I love it. So this is Team Frankie. So I guess the other one is Team Luffy. And the other one is Team, who would it be? Sanji, I guess? Because Sanji usually takes command of most situations. So Team Frankie, Jewel Tree Atom Tour. Oh, wait, is it just Frankie and Ripley? I guess so. Frankie says, here, there, everywhere. It's all Atom. I guess this wood's not that rare after all. Ripley says, is it really that valuable across the sea? And Ripley's just holding Frankie like he's an action figure. See, that's what's throwing me off, because some scenes, she seems so much bigger, and then other scenes, if I'm going by hand size, Frankie's like that. I mean, let me just kind of fit in her palm, I guess, and I guess that scale still fits. But when Luffy did that pinky promise with Shirahoshi, his finger had to, like, wrap around her. But then, I guess that works. See, I'm so thrown off by scale in this series sometime. Ripley says maybe I should go into business and start selling it. Jesus, this woman. I wonder who the dad is. Is it the guy who's wandering around? He's the only human-sized person we've kind of seen. Unless Cullen wouldn't be Shanks' kid. And he would have called one of the Roger pirates dad, I think. So it might be Shiki? If that is Shiki wandering around. Frankie says, you're the one who should be stopping it, Ripley. It's already scolded me once. This is a holy tree. Don't you go cutting pieces of it loose now. Ripley says, good impression. Frankie then says, anyway, if you have to cut the wood and haul it off without any giants noticing, I guess that'd explain the price. As he jumps out of Ripley's grip, he says, what's that? Ripley says, it's a mural. They're children's drawings from the ancient past, carved into the fossilized tree bark. It's a cultural relic due to its historical value. As Frankie makes his way over, he says, really? Kid scribbles? Ripley says they're estimated to have been drawn somewhere between 800 and 900 years ago. Void sent. Robin needs to see this. Holy crap. 800, 900 years ago, which if correct, puts them right within the period of the Void Century. Frankie freaks out, saying, what? We gotta show this to Robin. I'll tell her about it later. And as he gets closer, he says, I gotta say, for a drawing from Elbath, they don't all look like giants to me. Ripley says, that's right. It's the history we're familiar with. There were sometimes wars between the races, but never cultural exchange. Maybe that simply means this was nothing more than a child's dream. We cut back over to the Walrus School where we see children playing and learning as I'm forgetting her name. It's been a while and she hasn't been as relevant. What was her name again? Angie, saying, "Listen up, children, we're in the middle of a lesson." We then cut over to the Owl Library, where Robin says, "So this is the Harley." As Saul shows off the massive book, he says, "Sure is." Chopper says, "Wow, it's huge and old. Ugh, and dusty." Saul says, "All the various myths and legends of Elbath were created based on this original text. So there are so many interpretations of it, and it means the sun god all the warriors of Elbath believe in has a different personality depending on who tells the story. Ain't that funny?" Robin says, "May I read it?" As we see in the town, everyone's still partying and even doing the Nika dance. Saul says, "Of course, there, she. The story split up into 3 chapters. They say the 3rd chapter describes the world we live in today. It's about something that's going to happen in the future. In fact, the legends of Nika are seeded all throughout the world. The one common feature is that he always shows up laughing to this rhythm. Doom da da, doom da da da, like doom da da da. Doom da da da. He does the Nika dance and Robin laughs a little, saying, "Shall I read it now?" The first world. Within the earth there was fire. Mankind. And as Chopper listens, Frankie looks upon the mural in shock. So this mural describes the 3 worlds? It's a battle between serpents? Is that the Noah? Is it describing a mechanical civilization? Is that the Ark Maxim? And someone's stealing a sun. Did I see minks, mer people, ancient giants? Is that Emmett? Are those samurai from Wano? And that flag looks like it's from Vivi's country. And it has animal looking like people, like the minks. People with wings and flames on their back, like the Lunarians. People with long arms. So various races coming together to fight. Is that like a depiction of Eem? Alright, the first world. Within the earth there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. The enslaved prayer and the sun god appeared. The earth god raged, and with its serpent of hellfire shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. So the first world, within the earth there was fire, so magma. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun, so took power from the earth. They enslaved prayer, so they enslaved the populace to harness this energy. Then the sun god appeared. Okay, so that would have been Nika, the original Nika that the fruit was based off of. The earth god raged, and its serpent of hellfire shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. A serpent of hellfire? Earth god rage. Would that mean like maybe the red line was originally a serpent? Because I've heard people talk about the blood red serpent that Dorian Brogy talk about is the red line. Could that have originally been a living creature? And never will they meet. Then the second world. Within the void there was breath. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. Those of the half-moon dreamed. Those of the moon dreamed. Men killed the sun and became god. And the sea god stormed. They will never meet. So this would have been the time of Joy Boy, right? Well, within the void there was breath. So you could breathe in space. We've seen that. The forest god tamed demons. The forest god. And the sun spread the fires of war? The mother flame? That spread the fires of war. Those of the half moon dreamed. Those of the moon dreamed. Half moon and moon. So the crescent and the full moon? So like the minks and the Kazuki? Man killed the sun and became god. And the sea god stormed. And they will never meet. I don't know. The third world, which is the time we're currently in. Within the chaos there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet. So that's the bringing of the dawn that everyone talks about. Within the chaos there was emptiness. Within the chaos there was emptiness? What does that mean? The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon. Inconvenient remnants. And there are many who say the coming of the dawn. The sun god danced and laughed, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet. Who is the they that they talk about meeting? The first world says they will never meet. The second world says they will never meet. But the third world says they will surely meet. That is a lot to kind of wrap my mind around. Alright, the last chapter of this video. I'm still thinking about that mural. One Piece chapter 1139. Mountain Eater. Ogre Child Yamato's Golden Harvest Surrogate Pilgrimage Volume 25. We captured a rebellious duo. Well, they have horns, so I don't think it's Tama and Yamato. Guess we'll find out next time. Zoro says, we've been looking for the key for a while now. Are we even going to find it in this huge place before sundown? Rhoda says, the guards said they won't know where it is. If anyone would know the location of the key, it would either be Chief Jaru or a few of the elders. Luffy says, oh, the old sword gramps. I wonder if he'd tell us. Rhodes says, he would never give it to you. Freeing Loki would be a terrible crime. Zoro notes, we didn't decide we were going to free him yet either. So Luffy just walks off, humming a tune, saying, you're so strict, Zoro. Nami then calls out, hey, look over here. As Luffy heads over, still stomping along, he says, what's up? Rhodes says, ooh, red carpet, traces of opulence. Could this be the throne room? Oh, pardon us. Oh, as he peeks inside in awe. Nami says, Jesus, all busted up. Zoro says the scars of battle here are vicious. Even the ceiling's missing. Rhodes says, this is the throne room. What is that strange mark? They say, mark? What mark? As Rhodes holds them up to see, Luffy says, oh, you're right. Nami says, it looks like a magic circle out of a book or something. Luffy says, magic what? Nami says, it's a thing they use in rituals, demon summonings in some country or other. Luffy says, what? They call demons? Nami says, beats me. Rhoda, shivering, says, what is such a thing doing in the throne room? It's eerie. Luffy stops for a moment saying, I feel like I've seen something like this lately though. I wonder why. And the voice calls out, Straw Hat Luffy. Luffy says, huh? Rhoda says, who's that? A demon? Nami says, it's always not a demon. Who is it? Rhoda says, is it a soul from beyond the grave come to haunt us? He says, rest, spirit of the dead, rest, spirit of the dead. The voice says, I've been hoping to meet you. He says, whoa, who is that? Show yourself. Rhoda says, are you a demon summoned to this place? I just knew this castle was haunted. We must flee before the ghost haunts us too. Luffy says, wait, don't run, Rhoda. The voice then says, wait, and throws an axe? A really large axe. Is it Scoffer Gabon? But it's a large axe, so it might not be him. But it narrowly misses Rhodes, who freaks out as it just misses his head as he drops everyone else. And he says, don't drop us. Is that Scoffer Gabon? He's got the sunnies, and he's kind of got the hair. And Mr. Ya? Mr. Ya. And Scoffer Gabon doesn't have a Ya in the name. Maybe it's someone we've never met? Oh, Zoro catches Nami. He says, phew, thanks. Or did Luffy catch her and then set her and grab her and set her in Zoro's, hands? Because Luffy's arm is stretching. And he says, someone's on the chair. Rhoda says, forgive me, ultra rare Nami. As Nami says, I'm gonna smack you. Though Rhoda says, it's Ya. But why are you here? Mr. Ya says, I felt some very abnormal hockey coming from the castle earlier. Seems to have left, but now I find you here instead. I've heard the stories about Straw Hat Luffy, including that you took care of Kaido. Boy, I'd love to go traveling around Wano again. Oh, so he's been to Wano. Is that why he has all this get-up? Luffy says, huh? Sir Ya? Rhoda explains, he goes by Mr. Ya in Elbaf. He went by the school, correct? Did you not meet a teacher named Ripley there? He is her husband. Oh, okay, so he is. So the person who he's been waiting to meet him. I feel like this has to be Scoffer Gabon. Because we've been waiting for someone with these shades, and he has the hair. It's just white now. Luffy says, oh, so you're the dad of that giant shrimp. Giant shrimp. Okay, then. Mr. Ya says, giant shrimp. I guess I am. So you met Cullen and Ripley, huh? He took on a lot of giant's blood. He grew up without me being able to hold him in my arms. What do you believe he's 20? Ripley is 80. She's older than me. Let me tell you, marrying a giant's not worth it. I get older, they stay the same age. Nami says, that's a good point. I'm just surprised to hear that someone's actually done it. Right? What a man! As Mr. Ya jumps down, he says, love is free. There are many mixed blood races throughout history. The Buccaneers, the Dosundada, the long arms, the long legs, and the Botans. Wait, the long arm and long legs are mixed race? Wait, what? They're mixed with what? What would cause them to have long arms and long legs? And Dosundada. Oh, it's a mix of humans and dwarves. Dosundada. These blended people don't tend to last long, but in every era there have always been those who are more open-minded. Luffy says, Zoro then says, you seem to know a whole lot. Who are you anyway? Mr. Ya says, I'm the preacher of love. Oh god, he sounds like Sanji. Luffy says, that sounds like what Sanji will be when he's older. Okay, this has got to be Scopper Gabon, because now he even sounds more like Sanji. But then again, from what we saw of Scopper, he wasn't very Sanji-like back when. Luffy says, anyway, I'm searching for the key to Loki's cuffs. Rhoda says, don't just tell him about it, and he wouldn't know anyway. Luffy says, oh, forget I said that. Zoro says, too late. Mr. Ya says, Loki, eh? Fascinating. If there's one thing I love, it's other people causing trouble. Really? No, he says, that's really tacky. You better not tell anybody about this. Mr. Ya says, young lady, secrets are born to be spread. He's an old troublemaker, ain't he? No, he says, no, stop that right now. Mr. Ya says, do you know what kind of man Loki is? If the worst should happen because of this, what's your plan? Luffy says, I'll beat him up and put the chains back on him. Mr. Ya says, years ago, a man named Red-Haired Shanks captured Loki. But prior to that, no one was ever able to stop him. If you don't know what kind of powers Loki has or what damage he might do, though Luffy and Zoro are already walking away as Mr. Ya says, hey, wait. Luffy says, let's look for the key. I think he's going to be yapping for a while. Dang, rude. Mr. Ya says, hey, wait. Zoro says, you're wasting our time. Nami says, he's giving us a warning. You should listen to him. Rhoda says, I'm sorry, Mr. Ya, they're just... So, it is. Mr. Ya just looks on with a big old smile. As Rhoda says, huh? And Mr. Ya has a flashback. The Gold Roger saying, I'm sick of all your warnings. Are you afraid? And Scopper Gabon standing next to Rayleigh says, I didn't say that. Gold Roger tells him, if you want to stop me, you'll have to do it by force. And Gabon says, I'm telling you to be aware of the risk, idiot Roger. Okay, that's all the confirmation I needed. Mr. Ya then says, hey, Rhoda, go up to the throne and push it. Rhoda says, huh? Oh. So he did know where the key is. Meanwhile, back in the village, I think it's Oimo saying, in the old Pirate King's crew, there were two others who were especially strong aside from Roger himself. Usopp says, oh yeah, I'm guessing it's Rayleigh and someone else. Oimo says, that's right. One time Roger the captain needed to rest and heal. So he and this other fellow went to the hospital in the mountains. Unfortunately, he got surrounded by a bunch of enemy pirates. So this fellow went out on his own and took down hundreds of enemies with just his 2 axes. Usopp says, by himself with 2 axes? Oimo says, well, there's more. In the place where he fought, there was only the bald mountainside left behind, with not a single tree standing. Usopp says, what? That seems a little excessive. This is Oimo, right? Yeah, that's Oimo. Oimo says, and because of that, he gained the epitaph of Mountain Eater. Mountain Eater. Jinbei says, it's a well-known story. Oimo says, after the first mate, Silver's Rayleigh, this man was known as the Pirate King's left arm. Yep, the wings of the Pirate King. They say a hidden room? Nami says, a treasure chamber? Nami says, I love you, Mr. Ya. Treasure, treasure. As they make their way down on Roto's hands. Roto says, how do you know about this, Sir Ya? Mr. Ya says, exploring's my thing. Luffy says, whoa. Nami says, treasure. They say a treasure chest room. They're all empty. Mr. Ya says, yeah, but it was a treasure room. Nami says, you lied to me. Mr. Ya says, hey, don't blame me. It's an abandoned castle, the perfect target for burglars. But look, Luffy says, oh, a key. And as Mr. Ya jumps down next to it, he says, here's something no burglar would care to take. Luffy says, yes. And as Mr. Ya takes off his hat and cloak, he says, in other words, releasing Loki is something even the wicked dare not do. So, will you still take this key? Luffy says, huh? Meanwhile, back with Oimo and Kashin, explaining it to everyone else, I think Usopp says, what? Kashi says, yes, he's here. He's been living on Elbaf for over 20 years. Usopp says, what? Oimo says, a legendary figure who stood shoulder to shoulder with Roger and Rayleigh, the left arm of the Pirate King, Scopper Gabon. And as Scopper takes the key, he says, then take it from me, if you can. Oh, this old man is ornery. He saw a challenge. He says like, ooh, the next generation. Okay, let's see what you got, little whippersnappers. Oh man. I'm not gonna lie though, the nickname Mountain Eater feels like it came from how he met his wife, if you know what I mean. There's no dirty joke I cannot make at this point. That's all I'm saying. But why is he known as Mr. Ya? What part of that is it? Is it like some part of the Japanese of his epitaph? Mountain Eater Yamagurai. Oh, that's why it's Mr. Ya Yamagurai. And that is completely lost in English, unfortunately. How would you translate that? Mountain Eater, Mr. Eater, Mr. E, Mr. E. that would actually be kind of fitting. Man, but it's nice to finally know who this person has been this entire time. 'Cause my God, the first time we were introduced to him outside of what, like a flashback? Yeah, the little flashback with Buggy arguing with Shank. It would have been, shoot, all the way back. And I mean all the way back when he had just met back up with Crocus. Yeah, visiting Crocus on the Twin Capes. That would have been the cover. Oh, okay, that wasn't too long ago, of chapter 631. Oh, actually, no, that was a long time ago because that was 2011. So this mystery of who this man has been was made up all the way back in 2011. And this chapter came out in what? February 2025, this year. So people have been questioning who this man has been for almost 15 years now. My God. Just my God. That is absolute insanity. Because why do the Holy Knights think it's a good idea to free Loki? What is it about Loki that has gained their attention so much? Was it just him rampaging around Elbaf? They know he's a rogue enough element, and if they can bring him into the fold, maybe something along those lines? But that's a lot. That's a lot. That's a lot to just take in after all of this. I'm wondering how the Owl Library works, because, oh man, if the Holy Knights find out about the Owl Library, oh God, they're gonna go after that in a heartbeat. Is there a specific reason why Shamrock and Gunko came now? Why now of all time? At first I thought they were tracking down the Straw Hats, but no, I don't even think they're aware that the Straw Hats are here. And King Harold ripped off his horns as a statement. God. And what is it about Loki that so much misfortune has happened around his existence. Because it feels like a similar situation to Odin's existence. Things just kind of happen, you know? It's not like he means ill. In fact, he probably means to do good, but he just does a lot of ill in the process. Finally getting the explanation of Shamrock, too, is interesting. Shanks and Shamrock. And Shanks actually went to go visit his family, probably found out how much of scumbags they are and was like, yep, nope, I'm out. And the world government is just determined to get Elbas under their control. Yeah, I'm kind of worried to find out, because they want to go after the children. They're always targeting the children, you know, indoctrinate them while they're young and all that. And that mural, 3 Wars of the World. I just couldn't make out most of what they was talking about, though. All these gods of the sea, god of the forest, god of the earth. Who could that be? Is it the ancient weapons? Because even that doesn't really make sense, because you think it would talk about it. I guess the god of the sea would be Poseidon, but god of the earth, would that be Uranus? Did you talk about a god of fire? Would that be, no, would that be Pluton? You just don't know enough about most of the ancient weapons to really know how that all adds up. And running into Scopper Gaban. I wondered when we would finally come upon him. So all this time he's been in Elbaf. And he also has a relationship. And shoot, for One Piece, the series that, you know, says that our main characters don't really get involved with romance that often. You know, I mean, Roger had a relationship with Rouge. Rayleigh has a relationship with Shaki. Gaban has a relationship with Ripley. I mean, they all had, you know, lovers in their time. Shit, the only one who so far hasn't shacked up with anyone is, I mean, aside from Buggy and Shanks. I mean, then again, who knows? And Shanks technically had a daughter, and then Buggy, and you never know. I mean, we don't know everything about Buggy's life. If we ever run into a clown child with a big red nose, we know what's up. But, and Crocus, well, then again, we don't really know if Crocus had a family. For all we know, they visit him when we just haven't been around. And I don't count anything out nowadays because of what happened with Sanji. I mean, the whole backstory of Sanji coming in the way it didn't really contradict anything. That's the thing. It's just kind of like, oh, that's a thing. So for all we know, anybody could have a family we know nothing about, and then bam, there you go. So what can I really say? I'm just interested to see how this whole situation with Scopper Gaban goes down, because it looks like he wants to play keep away, see if you know, Luffy actually lives up to everything he's heard about him. But with as powerful as Luffy has gotten, I mean, Rayleigh, it doesn't seem like he's really kept up with a lot of training or anything like that. Whereas Scopper lives in Elbaf. Like, he can't be weak living in a place like that. So either Scopper has stayed, you know, prime strength, and the strength of old man in anime and manga to never leave that out. But Rayleigh said he couldn't take on Blackbeard. So unless Scopper has gotten stronger than Rayleigh, or at least kept a lot more of his strength than Rayleigh over the years, well, let's see how Luffy does. I'm actually interested to see how this goes down. Well, let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe if you enjoyed the ride. Thank you so much for watching. And until next time, I've been Duuz-Diz-Din, and I hope to see you later. So then, take care. Bye-bye.